Only female event director sets up the timing lights. We go into super modified mud racing. And folks, this isn't three-time world champ Tom Martin. It's the new driver of the Mud Patrol, Paul SHAFER, in his first run ever.
Oh, did you see that?
What a way to start a super modified mud racing career. Paul SHAFER taking over the reins of the three-time world champ's car. Huge power stand and tears the finish line. Pulls at the 80-foot mark right off in the fuel inject. I like the hands in the air there. The fuel-injected nitrous machine at 1.94 seconds will be disqualified. Tom Marsh out of Ohio in the intruder.
Oh, and he has a problem.
And you can see, Jerry, just before that machine stopped, it looked like either the transmission or the front drive wheels weren't getting power. Watch the front wheels as he leaves the line. Yeah, they just stopped dead. That was a transmission problem. Tough break for the Ohioan. 80-foot distance here, Jerry, with Ken Crum out of Kansas City. And the Wild Thing, this is always an outrageous piece.
It is. Rear-engine dragster type, Wild Thing. Oh, good launch.
Man, we've got a fast pit. Now, it looked like the engine shut down just before the finish line. I'll have to wait and see what happens. Look at the left front wheel and right front wheel, for that matter, up in the air. He tries to steer it away from the outer boundary. Then he's looking around, wondering why the engine shut off. That may have been a kill switch problem. We'll have to wait for the word from Tina Kelly, our event director, to find out whether or not he will receive a rerun.
Here's the instant T, Chad Miller. Uh-oh.
Now, that's a clutch problem there, Jerry. That's a clutch going away before he ever leaves the line.
Spectacular run. All right, Chad Miller, let's see the time now on Chad. Chad Miller with an unbelievable run. You can see that clutch going away. Still a time of 2:03 on the instant T, Chad Miller. Well, here's the fastest machine here this weekend. Jim Weber with the American-made. Jim is from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Earlier turning in a time of 1.72 seconds. Wow! I thought he was going to go out, but he did not. He kept it inbounds. Let's take another look now. Jim Weber from Milwaukee comes off the line and drifts over to the left side of the track. Does not hit the finish line. He stays in with a 1.955. Well, we have received word that the problem on Ken Crum's machine was a kill switch, so he will get another run. Remember, it's 80 feet to start and 80 feet to stop.
Completely sideways, and Ken Crum manages to get it stopped inbounds. You know, Jerry, we have not seen a single driver yet come close to that disqualification line. These guys have to stop within 80 feet after going through this 80-foot mud pit. But right now, it seems like the biggest chore is just getting to the finish line.
That's true, but look how wet that finish line is getting.
Yeah, it's very, very wet. You're right. Here's a team that's had more problems than probably any other this year, but they're still ranked in the top 8 in the World Championship. Ron Smith from Michigan in the supercharged 1948 Fiat.
Great run. And he gets it stopped.
That's the first driver we've seen go very far into the shutdown area, but this is always a wild ride. Supercharged, fuel-injected Chevrolet in a Fiat Topolino. Rough ride, 2.12 seconds. And also, Jerry, we haven't seen anybody yet come near that new national last time record of 1.72 seconds set during preliminaries by the American-made entry.
Well, here's a crowd favorite. Michigan Off-Road, Mark Waitrose in a Ford Thunderbird. Wow! Oh! And he just about hits the disqualification line. Look how close that is. All right, here's the rerun now. Mark Waitrose, a great run. He slides. Can he stop? Oh, is that close? Look how close. 4 inches from the mark. 4 inches from the mark. Mark Waitrose gets it stopped, and he does not get disqualified.
This is the 3-time world champion, the man who already wrapped up this year's world title.
Tom Martin of the Super Trooper. Brand new machine, very similar to the Mud Patrol that he won the 1990 championship in. Let's take a look now as the Super Trooper pulls to the line. Remember now, that finish line is getting very, very wet. It's going to be very difficult to stop this high-powered machine. Let's take a look now as Tom Martin rolls to the line, rolls into the staging lights. Good shot there as Tom Martin readies himself to launch off the line. Good run. Oh! It looks like he's going to be disqualified. Looks like he hit that line. Chris Wallace officiating at the finish line. Says it's a little bit too close. Let's take another look now. Tom Martin comes off the line. A good straight run. Trying to avoid those ruts in there. Locks up the brakes, slides it, and just barely hits the disqualification line. Well, coming up next, the Mystic Warrior, Preston Ward. Rolling to the line. Strong running machine. Preston Ward. Looks like he shut it off just a tad early.
Well, actually, Jerry, I think we saw some steam off the exhaust headers there, but I think we also saw some engine smoke. You got to remember, this Pennsylvania team is the highest-ranked Ford-powered machine in the sport. They were coming into this event, I believe, in the number 3 position, and they did burn a piston with their nitrous oxide system in preliminaries and qualifying for this event. Preston was worried about that.
The Insanity, Jeff Ecker.
It's a brand new machine for Jeff Ecker, 1927 T altered, and with a supercharged Chevy, it will be strong, I guarantee you.
Good launch. Oh!
Just barely goes out. Wasn't by much, I'll tell you. The Milwaukee driver has had some strong machines. He had one of the very first supercharged entries in this sport, but a slippery starting line slows him to a 216, and an even slipperier shutdown area puts him out. He won't qualify for the top 4.
Oh, and it's time now for
Michigan, and it is a killer.
Good run. Can he get it stopped? And he does.
A lot of steam off the exhaust headers, and Jerry, that just brings up the fact that you pointed out earlier. There's a lot of water still down at that finish line as it hits the hot exhaust headers. 2.12 seconds. Believe it or not, the mark to beat was 2.123. Fierro goes 2.126, and by 0.03 of a second will not get in the quick 4.
Ground 0 coming up next.
Jeff Sturkin, number 2 in the world last year. He was runner-up to Tom Martin in the World Championship a year ago.
Good run.
Oh, just goes out. That was a matter of 6 inches. And Sturkin will be disqualified. And you know what's amazing about that, Jerry? The finish line is so slippery. Watch the front wheels. It looks like Sturkin shut off before the finish line. Well, then again, maybe he didn't. 2.121. That would have been good enough to get in the field, but he's disqualified by 6 inches. Just tapping that disqualification banner 80 feet past the finish line.
Unbelievable. Well, coming up next, Byron Tinky and Bad Habit.
Now, it looked to me, Jerry, like Byron was worried. He saw everybody else getting real close to that finish, or to the disqualification line. He actually did shut the engine off early. Watch the front tires as he approaches the 80-foot. Yeah, he was out of it. And at 2:14, had he stayed in the throttle, I guarantee you he'd have picked up the 0.03 of a second he needed to get in.
That's a strong running machine. All right, coming up next, Red Heat, Melvin Brown.
Melvin Brown always in the top 10 with his not 1 but 2 machines at each event.
Good run.
It looked again like Melvin Brown got out of the throttle before the finish line. These guys are really scared of that slippery shutdown area. The rear engine injected nitrous oxide Chevy-powered dragster. Boy, he's getting thrown around in there. 2:27 will not qualify. Remember that it takes a 2:12 or better, actually 2.123 seconds to get in. Here's the guy, Jerry, that was just voted by the Camel people the Rookie of the Year for 1990 in the Super Modified Mud ranks. Jody Kelly out of North Carolina with his supercharged T-Roadster.
Let's see what Jody can do now.
That was one of the strangest runs I've ever seen. It looked at about the 60-foot mark like the rear end was 4 feet in the air there. Yeah, it was. 2.149 seconds, and he shut off way before the finish line. That car's running the low 180s. Here's an interesting young man out of the state of Iowa. This is Rick Holmes in a Wild Cherry machine. It is a very unusual piece, a fuel-injected Ford with nitrous oxide, Jerry.
Rear engine power.
Good run. Yeah, it was. Considering the amount of tire spin, Holmes did an excellent job. And this young man is coming on strong. He is probably going to be one of the toughest runners in 1991. He got invited to this event solely on his ability this year. The 282 does not even come close to showing you how strong that car is. I know his father would be proud of that one, Jerry.
Well, the ruts in the track are really getting severe. Here's the Blue Max, Melvin Brown's second entry. Oh, he shut off way early.
Well, yeah, he definitely shut it off before the finish line. I'm inclined to believe that the transmission was going away there. Melvin is one of the few drivers that takes advantage of the U.S. Hobbit Association rule that allows the driver to compete with two different machines. I'm inclined to believe that that performance will allow Byron Tinky's Bad Habit to take over the number 8 spot that that car occupied coming into this event. So that'll set up the Grand Slam shootout with the Team Rancho Michigan Off-Road Thunderbird of Mark Watros, number 1 at 193, followed by the new national record holder, Jim Weber, in the American-made at 195. The Instant T and Gold Fever entries rounding up the top 4, and it's going to be wild, Jerry.
Coming up, the finals in the Super Modified Mud and the Monster Machine. Stay with us.
Miss Camel, Elizabeth Williams, shaking hands with the crowds, and here's the first driver up in this shootout program, Jerry. Chad Miller in the Instant T. You saw him put down an excellent run earlier of 2.11 seconds. This kid's had a rough year. We already saw several major crashes.
Yeah, that's right. The Instant T, wild run. We've seen it a couple of times. And this is the first of the fast 4 now. Let's take a look and watch him make his pass.
Supercharged Big Block Chevrolet.
Good run!
On the brakes. Oh, into the wall. That's a pretty obvious disqualification there, Jer.
He hit the wall pretty good.
I'll tell you, this is one of the few times we always see a slippery starting line during the shootout. You'll see slower elapsed times than we saw in the first round, but I don't think we've ever seen a shutdown area this slippery. It's really playing havoc for these guys. 2.12 seconds, very consistent, but man, he slams the wall, and the officials instantaneously showing it's history.
Well, here's Michigan Off-Road, Mark Waitress, a favorite of the crowd here, a Thunderbird funny car. Good run. And Mark Waitress gets it stopped. He was going to make sure that he was not going to slide out of bounds in the final run. He climbs out of the car. He's real happy, and the crowd loves this machine. Team Rancho on a Ford-powered machine. He turns a 210. Now let's take a look at the rerun on this. Really screaming through the mud pit. He locks up the brakes. He wants to make sure he does not go over that DQ line. A great run, 2.10 seconds for Michigan Off-Road. Brett, can you get a word with him?
We've seen some Chevrolets do some damage tonight, but Ford Power won it this time. The supercharged Team Rancho machine 210 was the elapsed time, and it didn't take as much as you thought it was gonna.
Well, we just want to take it easy, you know, make sure we made a full run when you see everybody DQ, so we just want to make a win.
As close as it was to a disqualification on the first run, it looked like you shut it off and got on the brakes hard.
Exactly.
Can you tell there's some Ford people out here? Obviously, they're cheering for you.
Look out for 91.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the National Points Final, Mark Watros and the Team Rancho Ford Thunderbird.
And Jerry, I should. Marciani with the Rat Trap, a fuel-injected Chevy.